In a world of twisted facts, alternative narratives, corrupted corporations, and hacked feeds, how can we decipher the difference between truth and fiction? It's time to take back the truth. Read Robert Kiyosaki's Fake and learn the signs to recognize fake money, fake teachers, and fake assets. Determine what's real in a world where falsehoods are a weapon. Don't let fake advice destroy your financial future. Visit TheRealKiyosaki.com to read Fake by Robert Kiyosaki. That's TheRealKiyosaki.com.
This is the Rich Dad Radio Show. The good news and bad news about money. Here's Robert Kiyosaki.
Hello. This is Robert Kiyosaki, the Rich Dad Radio Show, the good news and bad news about money. And the theme of today's show is you can't win on your own. Let me say it again. It is impossible to learn on your own or to win on your own, but in school they teach you to learn on your own. That when you take a test, you can't ask for help. You know, my father, poor dad, was head of education and the teachers union. But in his book, in his teacher's manual, it says, cheating is giving aid to somebody in need. Let me say that again. Cheating, the definition of cheating is giving aid to somebody in need. So all of these A students come out of school and they think, yeah, if I ask for help, I'm a cheater. And that was my poor dad. I remember him sitting at night all alone. We're flat broke. When I was like 10 years old, he was flat broke. And he would sit there at like 2 o'clock in the morning, try to figure out how to pay his bills. I think back then he was making $280 a month and our bills were like $400 a month and he couldn't figure it out. He just couldn't figure out how to pay his bills. And the reason we're so broke is out of 6 in the family, 5 were in the hospital at one time. I mean, he got wiped out. So he sat there all by himself trying to figure it out, solitary man. And then, years later, I started studying with Rich Dad, and that guy on every Saturday would have his meetings, and he would have his accountants, attorneys, his banker, his project managers, his coordinators, and all the people that worked for him. And on Saturday, they had a meeting. Everybody got to discuss the problems. And what problems is Rich Dad facing, or my Rich Dad facing today? And everybody helped each other solve Rich Dad's problems. And that's how he got so smart, because Rich Dad never went to school. But he had very smart people, like his accountants and his attorneys and his bankers, and like his construction foreman and all that, and his head of housekeeping and his human resource person. He was a big team guy. So I saw the difference between my rich dad, who became richer and richer, and my poor dad, who was solitary man, like the song Neil Diamond says. So today's show is about you can't win on your own. And so all of you out there who are kind of going, well, what happened? Where's my money? How come I'm not winning? Is it because you're solitary? Is it because you're doing what they taught you in school? That asking for help is being a wimp and that you're cheating. So today we have my sweetheart Kim over here, and as you know, I wouldn't be here without her because, marriage is definitely a team sport, and it's the reason most people don't stay married. And they cheat in other ways, which we don't do. But anyway, and we also have Rich Dad Advisors Andy Tanner. He's our expert on markets. Markets go up and down, they crash, they boom, they bust. But also it doesn't frighten him because, you'll make more money coming down than you going up. And, of course, we have we have a couple of A students in our group. Andy and I are not one of them. But we have to have our token A students. And, of course, that's Garrett Sutton, our attorney. The other A student is Tom Wheelwright, our accountant. So I'm trying to tell you something, sports fans. From a teacher's point of view, from my poor dad's point of view, I'm still cheating like a wild man. But in business, that's called cooperation. And if I could shamelessly plug 2 books coming up, one is called Fake, and it's about fake money, fake assets, and fake teachers. And the reason teachers are fake is they tell you don't cheat, don't ask for help, which is nuts. And the other book is already out. It's one of our best-selling books. It's called More Important Than Money, and it's written by all of our advisors. Because one of the hardest things to do in life is cooperate. When you think about it, it's easier to go on your own. And the reason most people are broke is they think they have to be the smartest person in life. So once again, I'll say I have Garrett is a rugby player. I'm a rugby player. Andy's a basketball player, and Kim's a golfer.
I'm a golfer.
No, she was a soccer player at
I
one
was soccer.
time.
I was basketball. I did all of that. Yep.
Yeah, but team sports are different than individual sports. So today, you can't win on your own. And so if you're struggling financially, maybe you're a solitary man like poor Dad. Any comments, Kim?
Well, you talk about in school that you're taught to do it on your own. I had an experience. It got to the extreme when I was at the University of California at Santa Barbara. It was so extreme that everybody wanted to win on their own that they were sabotaging each other's projects. I mean, and then they come out of school being the A student.
And they do that in real life.
And they wonder why they don't build a successful business or they're not successful in entrepreneurs because it really is a team sport.
Yeah.
And I see so many people who are self-employed in the S quadrant want to do it on their own, right? Want to do it, but they can't bring themselves to trust somebody else to build the business with them. And I see so many S quadrant businesses that just spiral downward after a while.
Yeah.
Because you can't do it on your own.
So we have Garrett Sutton. He's one of the. There's only 2 A students in our whole group.
I'm afraid so.
It doesn't speak to. Oh, I think Sullivan might have been an A student, another attorney.
I don't think Sullivan was an A student. No.
He must have cheated if he was. He must have cheated.
So it's almost an embarrassment to be an A student in our group, right, Andy?
Yeah.
You catch hell in this group.
And Andy's also the author of Stock Market Cashflow and 401 Chaos. And Garrett's the author of Start Your Own Corporation and the ABCs of Getting Out of Debts.
And Garrett is an A student. He's an attorney, went to great school. So Garrett, first, give us a little bit about your background. You can apologize now for being an A student.
I apologize for being an A student. How's that? My parents kind of liked it, though. Robert, I grew up in the San Francisco Bay Area, went to University of California at Berkeley, and then went across the bay to Hastings Law School.
Fantastic schools, by the way.
Both great schools.
Yeah.
But as Kim said, people who are on their own will sometimes sabotage the other player in the class.
Yeah.
And so in the library, some people would take the books that you needed to research, and it wasn't like the internet had all the answers. People would sabotage their other students.
They cut out the pages from the important pages.
They would cut out the pages.
And that's the behavior they learn going into the real world.
Exactly right.
And they do that in the real world.
Yeah.
They think they can do that in the real world. And so what you're talking about, Robert, cooperation was not part of the mix for a lot of people.
No. So Andy Tanner, were you on the Rhodes Scholarship Program?
Well, it's. I'll tell you how dumb I am. Is I just realized I didn't notice the pages were missing. Maybe that's why I was struggling. I stole all those pages out. I didn't really look at the numbers, so that explains it.
So what is your background as far as higher education goes?
Well, I went to college for 2 reasons. A, because they told me that's what you're supposed to do. But B, I love to play basketball, and so that you got to keep.
You?
I'm 6'8". So
it beats being a jockey.
Yeah, it does. But you got to keep that C+ average to keep your school, stay on that eligible. But it was a great education. I had an amazing coach, one of the best ever, and Rick Majerus, and we worked as a team, and I loved it. I loved every second. I loved practice. I loved planning. I loved games, and you were never alone, ever.
No. And what happens if one player didn't carry their load? What happens to the...
Well, the other guys lift him up. If a guy's hurt, then you step up and do your part. If a guy can't play, then the next guy up comes in. And if a guy's not talking on screens or whatever, you let him know. You say, hey, let's go. So there's accountability and support, both.
And we've had your 2 sons on this program talking about how you teach your kids, but you also teach in team sports, right?
We do. They're unlucky enough to have their dad as their coach, but we play hundreds of games because it's a lot like the Kona learning. You learn stuff in that environment. You can what if we put the word tired on the chalkboard or effort on the chalkboard and say, let's talk about what it means to be tired. But when you have to give a supreme effort.
Right.
Then that's a different level of learning. Now you know what effort is. Now you know what tired is.
Right. And I have people, as a business owner, the reason it's easier to work on your own is you don't have to count on other people. But when you become an entrepreneur, boy, if you don't have a team, you're dead meat.
Yeah.
And it's not necessarily easy to put a team together.
No, it's
not.
difficult.
It's taken us years and years, and thank God we have our president Shane Caniglia, who's great at people and putting a team together. And even all the advisors, all of you guys. I mean, that took years of finding great advisors, because we've had some advisors that weren't so great.
Yeah, they're empty spots where because they didn't. We had a number of advisors who wanted to do it on their own. That they were the best. Well, I won't mention names, but that we were in London one time, and this one advisor comes up, and I think we had like a one-day talk, and he wanted 90% of it because his subject was the most important. Well, for some reason, he got kicked off the team. I mean, but either you're a team player or you're not. Would you say that's true, Andy?
Yeah, 100%. There's a saying that says you're either all in or in the way.
Yeah.
And that's really true.
So, Garrett, as a rugby player, would you say that's true too?
Absolutely, Robert. I mean, if you weren't pulling your weight on the rugby team, people would call you out on it.
Oh, God.
And, if you work with a team, you have that support and you have that honesty.
Right. Well, rugby and basketball are very similar because you move as a team. When you say that's true, I mean,
right.
And I captained my rowing team in school. Boy, you moved as a team then, 8-man crew. Boy, if you weren't as a team, your boat lost. And then I meet people who are, like I said, golfers. They have to do it on their own. But even then golfers are teams. They have coaches.
You got a coach. You got your other players around. Yeah.
So it's cooperation is the key to being wealthy. But unfortunately, our schools teach you if you cooperate, that's called cheating. So let's just say this up front. The book is called More Important Than Money. It's written by Rich Dad Advisors. And people say it's one of the best books I've never written. I mean, I did that because I wrote one part of it, but you really get a perspective of the team. Once again, it's More Important Than Money. And my other book coming out is called Fake, whenever I get that done. But it's about how schools punish us for making mistakes. I mean, how in the world do you learn if you don't make a mistake? You don't learn to ride a bicycle by getting on it and riding it. You fall off a lot of times or fall down learning to walk.
So if you want to be a successful entrepreneur, if you want to be a successful investor, you got to get rid of those things that you learn in school, which is don't cooperate and don't make mistakes, because the only way we're going to learn and grow is to make mistakes.
Right.
And I also say business would be easy if it wasn't for people. People
Right.
are difficult. It's hard. So how do you go about putting a team together? I'm just throwing it out there to everybody. How do you go about putting a great team together?
Well, just know that it takes time. Your first choice for an attorney or an accountant may not be the right choice. And don't get yourself locked in until you are really comfortable with your team of advisors. Like you said, Robert, it took a while for us to get the right team together.
Well,
so be open to new people.
Yeah, it's really not easy. Yet it's your greatest asset you can have is your team.
And I know, too, in terms of our attorneys that we've had, we would hire attorneys based on our level of knowledge and our level of success. And as we got more and more successful and as we grew more and more, we needed better and better and better attorneys, everybody.
And the other person that's essential it's almost like the center or the playmaker on a basketball team is called your bookkeeper.
Yeah.
And the reason, a bookkeeper is probably your lowest paid professional person, yet they're the pivot person because the bookkeeper keeps the numbers accurate. And if you have bad numbers,
you're in trouble.
Attorneys can't make the right decision. Accountants can't make the right decision. Your bankers can't make the right decision. So I can hear some of you right now, your cheap and tacky little minds go, well, I can't afford a bookkeeper. I can't afford an attorney. I can't afford an accountant. I can't afford a banker. Well, that's where the problem starts, because if you can't afford that, you're going to be a solitary man. Any comments, Kim?
Well, I just know when we started out, even our personal assistant was like, oh, we'll just hire her part-time because that'll be enough. But we hired her full-time, and because we did, and we didn't have much money at that time at all, but because we had somebody full-time, that freed us up to do what we were really good at, and that allowed the business to grow. So you gotta hire those people to start with.
So all of you with your cheap and tacky minds, the solitary man, the solitary woman, if you're wondering why you're working hard and not getting anywhere and people don't like you, is because you don't have a team, and business is a team sport. So that's why so many academic types are not successful. I just read, what's his name, Ben Bernanke. He was a Fed chairman, the most powerful banker in the world. You know how much that guy made a year? $199,600. That's all.
That's it.
That's all. Wow. And he went to Harvard, MIT, Princeton, Stanford, Berkeley, and that guy is making $199,600 a year in 2009 as the economy is crashing around him. And then you wonder why we're all screwed up. And the reason we're all screwed up is people went to school, they learned don't make mistakes and don't cheat, don't ask for help. When we come back, we'll find out what else you can do besides get rid of your cheap and tacky mind to put together a team, because your team is your greatest asset.
You're listening to The Rich Dad Radio Show with Robert Kiyosaki.
Don't be like Charlie. Charlie is that do-it-yourselfer who does himself in. Do-it-yourself is good for tile and grout. It is not good for asset protection. Charlie thought he'd save a few dollars forming his LLC online. With no guidance, he did it wrong. When he sold the property, he lost thousands and thousands of dollars. He did himself in by trying to do it himself. Don't burn yourself. Use Corporate Direct to set up and maintain your LLCs and corporations. Corporate Direct is owned and operated by attorney and rich dad advisor Garrett Sutton. Garrett wrote the bestsellers Loopholes of Real Estate and Start Your Own Corporation. He is Robert Kiyosaki's attorney for asset protection. He and his team will do it right. Visit them at corporatedirect.com or call 800-600-1760. Mention Rich Dad and receive $100 off your formation fee. That's corporatedirect.com. corporatedirect.com.
Financial freedom begins with financial education. Now back to Robert Kiyosaki and the Rich Dad Radio Show.
Welcome back, Robert Kiyosaki, the Rich Dad Radio Show, the good news and bad news about money. Question of today's Rich Dad Radio program is, are you a solitary person? Did you go to school and learn to take tests on your own? Do it on your own. Know all the answers. Be the smartest guy on your team. Or have no team, because having a team is called cheating. So once again, listen to the Rich Dad Radio Show anytime, anywhere on iTunes or Android. And then you can listen to all of our programs at richdadradio.com. We archive them at richdadradio.com so you can listen to this again. And this show is especially important, especially if you need to learn even more. To get it through your thick head, you need a team that you can't, if you can't afford one, you're not going to make it anyway, probably. You'll always stay small. But most important, to have your family, friends, and business partners listen to this to understand the concept of team. Because if your friends, family, and loved ones and your business partners went to school, they still think they're solitary men. They still think they have to take the test on their own. And that's why they're broke. That's why you can't win on your own. And so our guests today are Andy Tanner. He's a Rich Dad advisor, and his book, author of Stock Market Cash Flow, is how you make money from the stock market instead of giving it to your financial planner who keeps the money forever. And then 401 Chaos, which is all those, I won't say it, people out there who actually think the 401k is an investment plan. It is really an annuity for your mutual fund guys is what it is. You're sending cash to them every single day. And our other guest is Garrett Sutton. He's our attorney. And he is, like I said, one of the resident A students we have. Is quite embarrassed about it, but we have a couple of A students on our team. And he's my educator. I mean, when I have a legal question, I don't ask Andy. I don't ask him. I ask Garrett. Most people ask their brother-in-law, and they wonder why they're in trouble. They're in trouble with the law all the time. Is it okay? I can rob this bank? Yeah, go ahead. You'll get away with it. And also my sweetheart Kim, because she and I are, first of all, we're best friends, and then we're business partners, and we're married. It's wonderful stuff. But life is a team sport, and our schools once again teach us to do it on your own, to not ask for help. So we're starting today about your team, and for most people, I hear it all the time. I can't afford it. You can afford an attorney, you can't afford an accountant. And they can't even afford a bookkeeper. Now, if you don't have a bookkeeper, that's like the pivot man or the pivot person on your team, because if you have inaccurate numbers, you're in the blind, you're in the dark. So, Kim, would you mind first talking about Betty, our bookkeeper?
Yeah, well,
And she's not an employee; she was a professional.
She was a professional that we hired. But I'm thinking about the cash flow quadrant, Robert. The book, The Cash Flow Quadrant. The 4 types of people in business. You've got your employees and your self-employed on the left side, and your business owners and your investors on the right side. And I do think this is such an important subject because I think to make that shift from employee and self-employed to business owner, you've got to have a team. You've got to have a team. Otherwise, you're going to struggle, and you're going to just get to the point of where your own incompetency will kind of come at you. But back to Betty the bookkeeper. So Betty the bookkeeper, we hired her when we had very little to no money.
We're living in Portland, Oregon at the time.
Yep, and it was hard. I mean, we decided, okay, we need to find out where we are. That was the question. Where are we financially? And it was pretty painful when you find out you got a lot more money going out than's coming in. And we had to meet with her twice a month, and she made us look at our numbers and tell ourselves the truth about where exactly we were financially.
And there were months, give you easy numbers. There was 1,000 going out and 700 coming in. And Betty would just kind of hold her nose to it, right?
Yeah. Yep. And it was.
And she only cost about $100 a month. Yeah. But she was priceless.
Well, because we lie to ourselves about money. We lie to ourselves. Oh, I don't really spend that much on entertainment. Oh, I don't really spend that much on food. Oh, I don't really spend that much on clothes. But there it is, black and white. And it's like, if you need to figure out where you want to go, you got to know where you are. So Betty was priceless.
And she's the one who told us to pay. What did she do? She wanted us to pay our bills. And Kim and I says, no, we don't pay our bills. She went nuts.
Well, we had our rule. Our rule was any dollar that came into our household, 30% went off the top immediately. 10% went into a savings account, 10% into an investment account, 10% into a tithing or charity account before we paid our bills.
And she wanted us to pay our bills. And she says, well, how are you going to, you already have a shortfall, let's say $300 a month, and you go another $300 short. I said, that's when you make more money. So I just ran out and hustled to make more money. Yeah.
Yep. And I would call the creditors and say, well, we'll pay you something. We're not going to pay you all of it, but we can pay something now. And we made it. But that was paying ourselves first because that was our future.
So all you mental midgets out there are saying, I can't afford it. I said, man, I don't say you can't not afford it. So Garrett, what do you want to say about all that?
Well, Robert, early on I had an advertising business before law, and I needed to hustle to get the ads. And I was also doing the books. And for me, doing the books was just a drudgery. I wasn't good at it.
It took up a lot of time.
It took up a lot of time. Time I should have been spent selling. So I learned the lesson very early on that you need a bookkeeper so that you can grow. And
so let me ask you this. I hear it all the time, most people are S-corp, small business guys. My friend says, yeah, my wife does our books. I go, you're in trouble. Why? I said, because money is such an emotional subject. And you're married to the person, and then you're going to fight over the numbers. You're going to lie about the numbers. That's what happens.
Right. And you don't need a bookkeeper on staff. You don't need to pay them full time. You just need someone like Kim. You met with them twice a month.
Yep.
What was it, 5 hours that you had to spend
we just
on bookkeeping?
Paid her by the hour.
Pay her by the hour.
Yep. Yeah. And the other part, the other person.
It was about $20 an hour, so it was $100.
Yeah.
Right.
Yep.
It was cheap.
It was cheap.
Priceless.
Yep. But the other person, especially for starting up businesses on your team, you've got to have good legal advice starting out, getting all the documents in order.
How many times as an attorney do you see the problems occur because the entrepreneur or the person really doesn't know where they are financially? They're guessing.
That happens quite frequently, right? You need to have an understanding of where you are.
And
at any time.
You want to see the numbers, too.
You want to see the numbers. If you're ever going to get a bank loan, you've got to have good financials. And that you start right with the bookkeeper.
What I've seen is a lot of crimes start when they're short of money. They do,
Right.
They start cheating. They start cutting.
Well, they start doing everything on their own. Do it yourself. I go online. All these do-it-yourself corporations start it yourself. Do it yourself. It's cheap, and they don't do it correctly, and then they get in trouble. Right.
Well, the IRS, if you haven't done your corporation or LLC properly, that's a huge strike when the IRS comes calling on an audit. You have to do it right at the start, and it's not that expensive to do it right at the start.
Yeah.
And that's what you do as a corporations attorney.
Right.
But the most important thing is I just talk to Garrett, and then Garrett talks to other attorneys because I don't know what the other specialties are, right? You know what I mean? If it's criminal law, it's somebody else, right?
Right.
If it's accounting law, it's somebody else. But Garrett is my go-to guy. That's where I get my education from. And it's priceless. But you've got to do it on your own. You know, I'll pray for you tonight.
Well, the other point is that Garrett also talks to Tom Wheelwright, who handles all of our taxes and our accounting and all of that. So you're always talking together.
And that's where team comes in. If you have an attorney and a CPA who know how to talk to each other,
and a bookkeeper
who will get on the phone with the bookkeeper and get everybody in the right spot talking about everything together, you're just much better off.
Oh, you have a chance of winning then.
Right.
You can't win on your own, but they tell you that in school. Andy.
Yes.
As you went to Utah.
I did.
And because you was a great coach there.
Fantastic.
He taught you how to play team.
Yeah, I mean, I was a lousy basketball player. I couldn't jump, I couldn't shoot, but I could foul. So I went to a junior college first where I played, and I was pretty good. When I went to D1, I wasn't very good.
What's D1?
Division I,
okay.
Higher division. But what was wonderful about that is coach exalted roles. I mean, I was a very low role player, but it didn't matter how small your contribution was. It was important, and it made me feel important. And I'm closer to that team than the team I played on, where I was a prolific scorer and I mattered.
So you actually came out of school learning team.
I'll tell you the difference between chemistry and hoops is the spirit. When it clicks and you've got the right guys in the right roles and everyone loves their role and loves to see other people do well in their role, there's a beauty to that. And the same is absolutely true in business is, you don't have to be a great basketball player to find a great role on a great team. If you have effort and you understand your role, you can be on a winning team. And so many people want individual accolades, and they don't understand there's a joy in winning, even if you're not the star. And in my little business, I'm not the star, and I'm quite content to win by having an accountant who's the star, an attorney who's the star. Laurie, our bookkeeper, is the star.
The thing I was always amazed about, basketball, you'd see the guy going down, and he'd pass behind his back. And there would be a guy coming right behind, take that ball up and score. It's the same as rugby. Rugby, you always pass backwards. You didn't know where the guy was. Rugby is a game of moving the ball forward by passing it backwards. Mm-hmm. So they're ultimate team sports. Like Garrett, what happens if I'm tired and you have the ball? Do I have an excuse, or do I have to come up right behind you immediately?
You got to be with me.
Yeah, so as Garrett's going down the field with the rugby ball, I've got to be behind him. A guy's got to be behind me. And when they pass that ball, you can't say, "Hey, I didn't know you were going to pass the ball."
Yeah.
You just got to be there, right, Eddie?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, there's a support to it, and accountability to it, and a spirit is the thing that I miss the most about those times. Is you didn't have that in the classroom. And when you fail in the classroom, you're alone. And when you succeed in the classroom, you're alone. But you get to celebrate wins with other people or losses. There's just something about having support.
So our whole lesson today is about you can't win on your own. Two biggest mistakes schools make, they tell you don't make mistakes. Well, how do you learn if you don't make mistakes? And then take the test on your own. And that's what my poor dad did. He was an A student. But he couldn't take the test on his own. My rich dad was, in my poor dad's eyes, was cheating all the time because he had a team around him. Any comments, Kim?
Well, we have a lot of teams. I mean, we have our team of Rich Dad advisors. We have our team of our Rich Dad staff. Even our house. I mean, we want a beautiful environment. We have a team that takes care of the yard, that takes care of the house, and it makes it beautiful and increases the value. So there's teams all around us. And I just think the key to success of anything is getting the right people.
How about our doctors?
Yeah, we have a great team of doctors, naturopaths. Yeah, fantastic. And they all work together and they all talk together. They don't stay in their little silo and just do it themselves. They're all talking to each other all the time.
And so the thing I say to people, I can't afford it. Well, I don't know how you can't not afford it. So for Kim and I started with Betty the bookkeeper. It was about $100 a month, 5 hours a month, $20. But without her, we couldn't be today where we are because, as Garrett says, I still be doing the books, which I hate doing. You like doing books, Andy?
No, I don't care for the books.
Hate it. And it's faster to have somebody else do it for you. It's like yesterday, a couple of days ago, I think my garbage disposal blew up. The last time I've tried to fix 2 garbage disposals. I finally learned you're not supposed to fix garbage disposals.
Yeah, it's a great point about roles. Garrett has a role. He's just going to be better at that role than I could ever be. Laurie's going to be better at bookkeeping than I could ever be. And it's really strange. Why would I want to go through my life trying to do things I'm not good at when there's people that are absolutely willing and able and expert on doing a role?
Garrett, how long would it take you to know what Tom Wheelwright knows in accounting?
For me, in taxes, it would take quite a while. Yeah.
It'd be almost impossible.
It would be. I wouldn't want to do it, actually.
No.
Yeah.
And how much would Tom know what you know about the law?
Oh, that would take him centuries.
It's only because you ripped all the pages out of the
Final words on that, Kim, on the team? And Betty?
I think the team is crucial. If you want to grow and be a big business, you're not going to get there on your own. You're just not. I don't care what you say. So you got to just start by bringing on people. You're going to kiss a lot of frogs before you find the princes and the princesses. But you just got to do it.
Yeah, they're called professional help. They're not employees.
Yep. Right.
And we still have the same professional assistants, and we have our business. We have people who work for us and all this. But without that key nucleus team, we wouldn't be rich today. So all you cheap people that, I can't afford it. Well, you also can't afford it. And the biggest problem is most people went to school. They're taught to take tests on their own. That is really, really insane behavior. So when we come back, we're going to the most popular part of our program. It's Ask Robert, and that's where you get to ask us questions.
You're listening to The Rich Dad Radio Show with Robert Kiyosaki.
Don't be like Charlie. Charlie is that do-it-yourselfer who does himself in. Do-it-yourself is good for tile and grout. It is not good for asset protection. Charlie thought he'd save a few dollars forming his LLC online. With no guidance, he did it wrong. When he sold the property, he lost thousands and thousands of dollars. He did himself in by trying to do it himself. Don't burn yourself. Use Corporate Direct to set up and maintain your LLCs and corporations. Corporate Direct is owned and operated by attorney and rich dad advisor Garrett Sutton. Garrett wrote the bestsellers Loopholes of Real Estate and Start Your Own Corporation. He is Robert Kiyosaki's attorney for asset protection. He and his team will do it right. Visit them at corporatedirect.com or call 800-600-1760. Mention Rich Dad and receive $100 off your formation fee. That's corporatedirect.com. corporatedirect.com.
Log on to richdadradio.com while you listen. Now back to Robert Kiyosaki.
Welcome back, Robert Kiyosaki, the Rich Dad Radio Show, the good news and bad news about money. Now, today we're talking about how school F's you up. And the 2 biggest mistakes that school creates in people is they tell you don't make mistakes. I mean, how in the world do you learn if you don't make mistakes? And they tell you to memorize answers. I mean, what good is an answer? It's really bad. The second big mistake is they tell you to take tests on your own. And every day it's a test. And in school, if I ask for help, it's called cheating. But in the real world of money, it's cooperation. And we're talking today about cooperation. You better find out who's on your team, because business and investing are team sports. Unfortunately, the people that went to school, like my poor dad, the A students, they take everything on their own. My poor dad took his tests, his financial tests, on his own, and he didn't know anything. So our guests today are Andy Tanner, he's Rich Dad Advisor, author of the book Stock Market Cash Flow. I mean, imagine that. You can actually make money from the stock market, cash flow.
Yes.
What an amazing book. And then also 401 Chaos, which is where you find out you don't make any money in the stock market. and when the market crashes, you're going to lose it all anyway, which is really stupid. And his website is andytanner.com, ANDYTANNER.com. And Garrett Sutton, he's the attorney and Rich Dad Advisor. And he's our specific is on asset protection. Okay, this is how you structure so that, because you're going to get sued. Today is so litigious. Everybody wants to sue you. You better have asset protection. He's the author of Start Your Own Corporation and the ABCs of Getting Out of Debt. And his website is corporatedirect.com. And the big question is, where does Garrett reside? He resides in Nevada. not California, where he's from, because he's not a communist. He doesn't like paying taxes. And, of course, it's my sweetheart, Kim, who's probably the most important person on anybody's team is their spouse. But as you know, for most people, their spouse is their biggest enemy. They're he doesn't make enough money. Well, she spends too much money. You know what I mean? Well, give me a break here. So today I want to thank you all for listening. And we were talking about today why you have to have a team. So we're having questions for Ask Robert, and you can send your questions to Ask Robert at richdadradio.com. So, Melissa, what questions do you have from the solitary people out there?
Yes, Robert. Our first question today comes from Yvette. Favorite book, Rich Dad, Poor Dad, from Bozeman, Montana.
I love Bozeman. It's beautiful up there.
Here's Yvette's question. From a legal perspective, how do you know what kind of business to set up when you're first starting out?
So that's a really good question from the legal perspective. So let me say, you ask an attorney. And the reason I say that is Kim and I always say that free advice is always the worst advice. It's the most expensive.
It's always expensive. Yep.
And I meet so many people who ask their brother-in-law about law. And the brother-in-law can't even get up in the morning and put his feet through his pants, but he's going to give you legal advice. It's really stupid. So that's why I have Garrett Sutton on my turn. He doesn't know everything about law, but he knows the law. He spent his life, he's a professional, all his life on the law. So it's a great question. But if you want legal advice, you talk to an attorney. Any comments there, Garrett?
Well, she asked, how do you know what to set up? You don't know what to set up. They don't teach it in school. So you're going to work with your team of professionals, and specifically you're going to work with your attorney to set up the right entity. The government gives us choices. We can be a corporation or an LLC, but you're not going to know which one to set up. It also depends on what business you're entering. Are you investing in real estate? So work with your attorney to get the right advice.
And don't just work with any attorney.
Right.
Should they interview attorneys?
Yeah, you're going to want to work with someone that you get along with, that you feel comfortable with. You're going to ask your friends, who do you use as a business attorney, right? You're not going to use a personal injury attorney for business.
But
there
people
are specialties.
do. But
I know
people
they do.
They use the wrong attorney.
Right.
I mean, if Yvette wants to know what kind of entity to set up, she needs to go to somebody who is practicing corporate structures, like you.
It's interesting, the question, how it changes from what business do I set up, how do I find a good attorney on my team? And I love the idea of find someone that's in the same business as you, successful, and say, who's your attorney? Start referrals.
That's
even
a great
better than
idea.
your friends.
It's a very good idea.
There's some really great attorneys, and most of them really aren't famous. Like these trial guys. You're just looking for a good, solid attorney who really is a professional. They like being an attorney. They study the law. They're dedicated to it. But don't ask your brother-in-law. Next question, Melissa.
Our next question comes from Linda in North Carolina. Favorite book, Rich Dad, Poor Dad. Would you advise buying gold and silver or oil with our 401k? My husband and I are both in our mid-60s.
I hate to say this, but I think you're in trouble right now because gold, oil, and whatever we ask for, they're a different strategy for them. But let me just answer this question. First of all, Andy, what do you think about the 401k?
Well, the 401k, everyone knows that I'm not a big fan. It's been around for 40
Well, it's better than nothing.
Well, I guess it's better than doing nothing. I don't know. Sometimes stuffing your money under the pillow might be better. Sometimes, it's been around for 40 years. There's a lot of problems with it, in that risk is related to control, and you really have no control over that market.
The biggest risk is that your cash is flowing out of your pocket.
Yeah.
It goes to Wall Street and it goes to the banks.
And for someone's in their 60s, it's time to start retrieving that money. It's a race against time. Are you going to run out? Do you have a big enough egg in there to last you through retirement?
And that's why what Kim and I are, what we're talking about here, it's a team sport. You better have a bookkeeper and to find out where you are financially right now and get those numbers twice a month so you know where you are. Now, I can't afford it. Well, you're going to just put your money in gold and oil and all that, know nothing about it. You're going to talk to a financial planner, and they're the biggest crooks of all, simply because they don't know anything about gold or oil. So, Kim knows. How do I know so much about gold and oil? I actually talk to the guys who drill for oil and drill for gold. right?
And yes, and we have a gold expert on our team, which is Jerry. And I mean, we're constantly learning about
from real people.
I mean, Robert's more the oil guy. I like gold, and but from real people who are dealing with it every day is the point. They're real teachers, basically.
Yeah.
We're learning from real teachers who are practicing, who are in the business of gold and oil every day.
And the worst thing about asking the thing, it's against a team sport. The question I ask about gold and oil is, what's the tax ramifications, right, Garrett? And how do you hold it?
Right. And in a 401k, you're not going to get some of those tax
No.
benefits.
No.
Well, the question is someone says, should I buy oil? My question to them would be, how much do you know about oil?
Mm-hmm.
And if someone says, should I buy gold? I say, well, how much do you know about gold? Think about this if it makes sense.
Or taxes.
Yeah, should I invest my money in an asset that I don't understand and that my team doesn't understand? And, if you have Betty the bookkeeper, you might be able to understand your goals better. If you want monthly cash
goals,
flow,
your where you're going, your
right.
financial structure.
Yeah. If you want monthly cash flow, well, you ask, is gold going to provide that for me? And then learn about gold.
Right.
So,
because we do know one character who kept bringing us these investment plans and these investment deals, and they never ever made sense to us. So we never invested in them, and now it turns out he's in jail. There you go.
Well, yeah. So look, if you're going to learn about something, don't be lazy. What you're looking for is somebody who's real.
mm-hmm.
The worst people on earth are 401k guys. It takes longer to get a license to be a massage therapist than to get a 401k license. It would take 2 weeks to get a 401k license.
Yeah, there's simple tests that you take, and so if you pass the test with a 75 or 76, then they let you go out and do securities.
I'm not saying they're bad. I'm not saying they're bad people, but most of them are broke. That's why they become financial planners. So not bad people, but they're in the same boat as you are. So in my book, Fake, and this other book that I recommend, More Important Than Money, you better know who's real out there. What's real? And if you don't know what's real, then you may as well ask anybody what to do. Like, I don't ask somebody who's not an attorney for legal advice. I don't ask somebody for accounting advice unless they're an accountant, like Tom. And these guys are part of our team. We communicate all the time. It is a team sport. But our damn school system teaches us not to make mistakes, look for answers from people who are not qualified to give you the answer. Just think about that for a while. Next question, Melissa.
Our next question comes from Gerald in Minneapolis. Favorite book, Rich Dad, Poor Dad. What do you understand about digital currency, and do you believe it's real or a fraud?
It depends upon who's dealing with it. We have several people in our company right now. It's real to them. They're dealing in digital. They're mining digital coins and all that. To them, it's real. To me, I don't know anything about it. I own some just to fool around with it. But again, I'll say there was in Sunday school, which I flunked out of also. One of the best stories I ever heard was the story of the three wise men. And I know my little Sunday school teacher, she was a real sweetheart. She was like 10 years old, but she was like probably 20. She was hot. So she was talking about the three wise men. She asks us a question, says, what made the wise men wise? And I said, money. They had frankincense, something, and myrrh. She goes, no, that's not what made them wise. And somebody said, oh, they went to college. I said, no, they didn't go to college. This was before Jesus, and they didn't have any, And then I said, what made them wise? She says, what made them wise was always sought the new teacher. And what happens for most people is they go, this is my book, Fake. It's coming out soon as soon as I write it. But it's about fake teachers. Fake teachers tell you to look for the right answer. You've got to find a real teacher with your answers. What's real? And a real teacher is actually practicing what they teach. Like Garrett practices the law. Andy's talking about the 401k. He understands it. He's researched it and all this. Kim understands real estate extremely well. Tom Wheelwright understands taxes and accounting. And Kenny McElroy understands debt. So that's why the book, More Important Than Money and Then Fake. Look, ladies and gentlemen, don't be lazy. Don't look for people giving you fake answers. You better find out what's real. Final words, Kim.
Well, final word, you said something interesting, Robert. You said that, we bought a little bit of cryptocurrency. And that is one of our strategies to learn is we buy a little bit of something because that, as soon as I put some money on something, I get really interested and my attention goes on it and I start studying it and learning. So one of the strategies is maybe you might want, if you're interested in a type of investment, is to put a little money down and then watch it and see what happens.
Find out what's real. And Garrett was there when I bought those cryptos, right?
Right.
And they turned out to be criminals.
They did.
Good thing you had your attorney with you.
Well, I had a kind of a weird feeling, and so it paid off.
Yeah, it didn't cost us any money, but it was another valuable experience. Whereas inside the Rich Dad Company, we have Joel. This guy is hardcore, man. He is mining it, he's buying it, he's trading it. So when I need to know about crypto, I just go see Joel because he's for real. Final words, Andy?
Gee, you talk about the theme of fake. Is cryptocurrency fake? Shoot, is the dollar fake?
There you go. There you go.
I mean, is the U.S. dollar real? It's just we all believe in it. And,
biggest Ponzi scheme in the world.
We all believe in it. There's a difference between advice and education. And it's interesting.
And answers.
In this segment, when it says Ask Robert, people asking for answers. And all the times I've done this show, no one says, well, what's the last book you were studying to learn, or who is the latest mentor you've been following, or
what's the biggest F-up you've ever done?
Yeah, what's the biggest mistake, as opposed to, what should I buy? And you speak to the laziness of that, and I have to agree. It's not the investment that brings the risk, it's the investor that brings the risk.
Right.
You can invest
and
in
asking people who are selling you something.
Yeah, you can ask Warren Buffett what he invests in, and you'll probably have a lot more risk because you're not as smart as he is.
Right. So anyway, thank you for listening to the Rich Dad Radio Show. You can submit your questions to Ask Robert at RichDadRadio.com. RichDadRadio.com. Once again, the book is called More Important Than Money. Please get the book. It's about your team. And also look for my book, Fake. It's about fake money, fake teachers, and fake assets. And most school teachers are fake. They teach subjects that they don't even know anything about. They're good people, but they don't know anything about the subject they teach because they don't do it in real life. So, Melissa, thanks for the questions, and we'll see you later.
đường làng quanh co sông thu êm đềm hà diều đã bóng nắng cháy giữa đồng kỷ niệm yêu thương trong mỗi ngày tiếng cu gọi hãy nhớ biết bao tôi xa quê bao năm tháng qua nhưng trong trái